Turn in your Bible to 2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. It says in verse 22, "Now flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." Just that simple passage of Scripture. Flee from youthful lusts, he tells Timothy. And I don't know whether he had good reason to tell Timothy that, other than to remind him of what his duty was. It seems to me like he was a good man. He was a young man. And because he was a young man, youthful lusts are always a problem. They're always a problem. And therefore, we need to be reminded every now and then to watch out for these things, because we're in constant danger. So long as we're in the flesh, we're in constant danger from the flesh. These lusts wage war against the soul. And it is a guerrilla war that it wages against the soul. It seeks to ambush you, take you by surprise, take you captive. It does all the things that guerrilla war, that those who are involved in the guerrilla war will do, laying landmines for you and blowing off your cover and destroying you or damaging you in some way. So we've got to be very much aware that this is a problem for us and that we need to watch out for it, we need to flee from it. Now when he says flee from youthful lusts, immediately the mind goes back to Joseph. Good old Joseph, when he was in Potiphar's house in Genesis chapter 39. And Joseph had a problem. The problem wasn't so much youthful lusts, is that he was beautiful and warm, and he was a good man as well. So Potiphar's wife, who obviously had too much time on her hands and too much time to think about herself, she decided she likes this young fellow. He's smart, he's good looking, he's intelligent, and she wanted him. And she let it be known that she wanted him. But he constantly refused, and his refusal is quite remarkable when you think about it. Verse 9, he says, "There is no one greater in this house than I, and he has withheld," that is, your husband has withheld, "nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great evil and sin against God?" And while I was thinking about it, I was thinking, how did this young man get such an insight and such conviction about this sin that he was being tempted into? Most young men are just in cloud fairyland with all of this, the immorality thing and the lust and so forth. And for that reason, they can be easily drawn away as far as this is concerned. This would be the stuff of dreams for them. Well, for Joseph, it was the stuff of nightmares. And what struck me was, do we remember back in Genesis chapter 34 it is, where they came to Shechem, that's Jacob and his sons came to Shechem. And Shechem, there was a fellow called Shechem, and he looked at Dinah and he fancied her, and he wanted her. And because he was a heathen, he had no morality, he just took her. And he had relations with her, and then he comes back, because now he's in love, he's so in love with this girl. He comes back to the family and he says, "I want her for my wife." And they negotiated a little bit, and they said, "Well, you can't take her as your wife unless you're circumcised." So the whole town got circumcised. And when they were in the height of their pain, two of the sons of Jacob went in there and slaughtered the whole lot of them. So, what Joseph, now Dinah was Joseph's older sister, so he would have known the story, and he would have, the whole thing changed, the whole situation changed for Jacob and his family in Canaan at that time because of what happened here. They were treading very carefully with all the towns and all the cities around because they felt like there was going to be reprisals. So he saw that immorality brought anger and murder out in people. And that's the extreme end of it. So he would have been well versed in the dangers that are involved in the lusts of the flesh. And not just the lust, but the consequences of being lustful and expressing that lust in unlawful and illicit ways brings about death and anger. It brings about some terrible consequences. So when he was tempted, he says, no, I don't want to end up in a situation that my whole family ended up with because of what happened at Shechem with my sister Dinah. He didn't want that, and so he shouldn't want it, and neither should we. If we had a head on our shoulders, we can see that there are dire consequences, and therefore we must do as Timothy was told to do: pursue righteousness, pursue what is right and good in God's eyes, rather than just the animal desires that are within us. The truth of the matter about these desires is, if you do not control them, they will control you. If you do not control them. There's a statement in 1 Timothy chapter 5, just to illustrate this point. 1 Timothy chapter 5, he's talking about the widow. He says in verse 6, this obviously is a younger widow now, but she who gives herself to wanton pleasure is dead even while she lives. Now that word wanton is not used very often by us. And I was thinking, I don't really know what it means. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and it says without motive, provocation, or justification. That still left me scratching my head. So she goes after this pleasure without any real motive, any real provocation or justification for it. In other words, she goes after it because she wants it. She feels like it. So her motto was, you feel it, you do it. You feel it, you do it. And I think we've got a whole generation of people now, young and old, who go by that motto. You feel it, you do it. That's it. There doesn't have to be any justification for it. There doesn't have to be any motive for it. There doesn't have to be any provocation. You just go along with the emotions and the desires that well up in you. No matter how strong or how feeble they might be, you just don't ask, what does God think of it? Is it right? It's just, it's what I feel like. So I'm going to do it. And that's the way it is. Now, the poor fellas, you see, they're driven. I mean, really driven. I'm sure there are some women who are driven as well, but I think they're less driven than the men. And the men are badly driven. So you get a beautiful face and a well-dressed or a less well-dressed woman, and that's just like a magnet to a younger man, or even to older men. And I think women need to learn that there is very great power in good looks. Very great power indeed. And of course, how you use that power says a lot about yourself. And there are women who will use that to get what they want in life, or to get who they want in life, so that they can have the lifestyle and the image that they want to portray to the rest of the world. In Ecclesiastes chapter 7, he says in verse 26, I discovered more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, whose hands are chains. One who is pleasing to God will escape from her, but the sinner will be captured by her. See, this is, outwardly, this woman is beautiful, obviously. And she's attractive. And she knows she is. Like all the celebrities on the television now, I mean, they spend hours, obviously, looking in the mirror and making themselves up and dressing themselves and deciding how they're going to look or what they're going to wear and all the rest of it. And but listen, fellas, beauty doesn't mean goodness. It doesn't necessarily mean goodness. If there's a combination of beautiful and goodness, that's terrific. How blessed that person is, and all who know her. But don't look and just go on the looks and think, I know that person. That's a person I would want to be with. That's a person I would want to have. Because you don't know. You're only seeing the outer person. And that person could be this woman who Solomon says, I've discovered to his great hurt. A discovery which was more bitter than death, he says. The woman whose heart is snares and nets, and whose hands are chains. In other words, once you're in their grip, you can't get out of it. I know there's a proverb that says that a harlot is a narrow well. In other words, have you ever heard stories of children falling down narrow wells and how difficult it is to get them out? Well, somebody who goes in that direction is going to fall into a narrow well, and you might just get out with your life, but you might not. Would you deliberately throw yourself down a narrow well or a deep pit? Would you? Knowingly walk into it and drop yourself down into it? Well, that's what happens when you're attracted by the woman who is loose. Loose in her morals, wanton in her pleasures, who has no standard of morality, who cares less what she does and who she does it with. And for young men that might seem like the ultimate in discovery or treasure, but it is the ultimate in danger and difficulty. It is the ultimate in danger and difficulty. So let's have a look at Proverbs chapter 7. In Proverbs chapter 7, he gives a story about the young man who was so easily taken away. And beginning with verse 6, he says, For at the window of my house I looked out through my lattice. I saw among the naive, I discerned among the youths, a young man lacking sense, passing through the street near her corner. And he takes away the way to her house, in the twilight, in the evening, in the middle of the night, and in the darkness. And behold, a woman comes to meet him, dressed as a harlot and cunning of heart. She is boisterous and rebellious. Her feet do not remain at home. She is now in the streets, now in the squares, and lurks by every corner. So she seizes him and kisses him, and with a brazen face she says to him, I was due to offer peace offerings today. I've paid my vows. Now, I didn't understand that. What that's all about is, with the peace offering, certain part of the animal was offered in sacrifice, and the rest of it was given back to the offerer. So she was saying, I've plenty to eat at home. We can have a banquet together. So she's offering him all of these pleasures. And then she describes the sensual scene. Verse 16, I've spread my couch with coverings with coloured linens of Egypt. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Come, let us drink our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with caresses. Verse 21, with her many persuasions, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she seduces him. And off he goes, like a bird walking into a net, or an animal walking into a trap. He doesn't know that he's walking into a place that is the opening to hell. And that's the truth. But you see, you think this is just the age where all those things, or things like that could happen. It's happened from the beginning of time. It's been happening. But we don't learn from history. We don't even learn when God's Word tells us what the reality is. We'd rather live in the dream world and think it's in keeping with my own fantasies and my own dreams and my own lusts and my own desires. But it's very dangerous to do that. You know, men are not the only ones in danger. Women are in danger as well. Grave danger. In 2 Peter chapter 2, he's talking about the false prophets. He describes them in verse 12. But these, like unreasoning animals, born as creatures of instinct to be captured and killed, reviling where they have no knowledge, will in the destruction of those creatures also be destroyed, suffering wrong as the wages of doing wrong. They count it a pleasure. Listen to this. This is not just, I don't believe that he's saying that only these false prophets think this way. This is the natural man. This is the way ordinary men think. And it's when they get into religion and they start using religion as a cloak in order to fulfill their own lusts that we have that terrible combination of lying to the people, destroying their souls, and using them and abusing them for his own pleasures. That's the sort of person we're talking about here. But he's not unique in the lusts, because this, listen to this, they count it a pleasure to revel in the daytime. Not only at night, their minds are going in the daytime as they look at different women and they're thinking about pleasuring themselves. Their stains and blemishes, reveling in their deceptions as they carouse with you, having eyes full of adultery that never cease from sin, enticing unstable souls, having a heart trained in greed, accursed children, he says. Eyes full of adultery is very descriptive, and it's very accurate. Very accurate. That's why the Lord had to tell the man they've got to get a grip. A grip on your lusts and desires, a grip on your thinking. And you have got to change the direction of that thinking when you are tempted in this way. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus tells his disciples, verse 27, he says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. And then he suggests a very extreme form of prevention. He says, if your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it away from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body, than for your whole body to go into hell. Women can help greatly if they would obey the Lord on this matter. A woman is to not to dress herself for the external look, the braiding of the hair, the wearing of gold jewelry, the putting on of pretty dresses and so forth. It's to be the hidden person of the heart who is supposed to be more important as a Christian. And the apparel must be orderly, in keeping with that godliness and that godly sincerity that's inside. The outside reflects that order and that godliness. That's what it's supposed to do. Today's society, to dress like a harlot is just to dress ordinary dress. Too low, too tight, too short, too provocative altogether. We're showing our wares. What do you expect? What do you expect as a response from showing everybody how beautiful you are and how shapely your body is? Do you expect them to close their eyes? Do you expect them to go around like zombies so that they not see? And if they do see, are they not going to be affected by it? Well, it depends again on how well controlled the man is. But you're making it difficult for him not to look on you with lust because you're drawing that sort of attention to yourself. Now, the man needs to train himself to not look. To not look. When you're driving your car and you see the red dress somewhere down the line, just look at the car in front of you. Or look at the traffic lights on the left until you've passed the red dress. And don't let yourself dwell on these things, because it's too much of a temptation. It is too difficult to resist. What the devil is doing is he's presenting you with images on the streets, on the television, in the movies, in magazines. He's breaking down your resistance. He's trying to get you to fill your mind with the lusts and the desires of the flesh. He's trying to fill your eyes with adultery. He is working endlessly and relentlessly to destroy your soul in this way. And you've got to stand up and be counted. And you've got to resist with all your might. And you're not going to be able to resist in your own strength. You're going to have to call on the Lord to help you with what's going on. You're going to have to call on Him and say to Him, look, Lord, I am bombarded. I am overwhelmed. I am being swept away as in a tsunami. I don't know how to help myself. I need help. And I need forgiveness for what I've done already in terms of thinking the thoughts that are wrong. Now this is going to be a whole lifelong battle. It's not one day or 1 week or 1 year. It's not youth. It's middle age and it's older age. It probably won't stop completely until you take your last breath. So therein lies the danger for the women. The women see a nice looking bloke, dark hair, suave, wears the suit, lovely pearly teeth, fit looking man, driving the right type of car, and you're thinking, wow, that's the man for me. That's who I want. And you don't realise this man is corrupt inside. You see, you're not looking at the inside, you're only looking at the outside. You need to find out what they're like. Find out what they're like. Is it the car that's most important to him? or is it spirituality? Is it goodness, or is it taking advantage of everybody for their own ends? How many affairs has he had already? Am I just one in a line of affairs that he's going to have? Is he going to dump me like he dumped the rest of them? Are you always, even if you marry somebody like that, are you always going to be looking over your shoulder to see who's looking at him or who he's looking at? There was a fellow in South Africa who was a Christian. He was a South African. Big chap. You know, the South Africans are big lads. Good looking man. Absolutely stunning. But it was a curse to him. Because the girls liked him and he liked the girls. But he was married and he had 2 children. It didn't stop him. It drove his marriage into the gutter. And he created more unfaithfulness and trouble in the church than you would believe. So you see, it does happen. And that's why Timothy was told to flee youthful lusts, for all those reasons. So must we. So must we. These lusts wage war against the soul. And if you're not ready for the battle, you are going to be pulverized. Absolutely pulverized. Now, to get us to weaken our resistance, of course, what the devil's going to do is drive you to another lust, another desire. Proverbs chapter 20 speaks about it. He says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is intoxicated by it is not wise. Drink. In Ireland, drink is a major problem. I think it's about as big a problem as it is in Russia. Both countries have a big problem. I don't know about the Czech Republic. They probably do, but I don't know about it. I just know that we have massive problem here with drink. And it's part of the culture. You can't do anything without having to go into a pub. The whole social life revolves around drinking. So it's very hard to escape it. One way or the other, we're tied in here. But he says, wine is a mocker. And wine could be strong back then, but the strength of the wine back then compared to the strength of the whiskey or the vodka or the brandies or whatever the people are drinking now, nothing. I mean, this is blow your head off stuff that they're drinking. It's like petrol that they're drinking now. But they can get the kick very quickly. And what that means is your whole resistance to anything that's lustful becomes less and less the more you drink. It just does. And if that's the case, if being intoxicated by wine is not wise, is it wise to be intoxicated by heroin? Is it wise to be intoxicated by cocaine? Is it wise to be intoxicated by hash so that you're not sound of mind? Even the ad on the television which shows us how dangerous it is to drive with these substances in your body or flowing through your bloodstreams in your head. It says they are out of their mind, and that's absolutely right. You're not in your right mind. Christians who play around with drugs or play around with drink, which is a drug, are playing with fire, and it's a dangerous fire. Again, Proverbs speaks about it in Proverbs 29. I'm looking for the drink one now, I can't find it. 23, isn't it? Yeah. 23, I'm sorry. Verse 29. He says, who has woe? Who has sorrows? Do you ever see somebody who's drunk and they're in the poor me mode, and God help me, and my life's been so hard, and everything's gone against me, and who? Sorrows. You don't know what sorrows are till you've got a few drinks on you, and you start to think about your past, and think about how hard it all has been for you. This is the sorrows. These are the woes. Who has wounds without cause? Oh, that one said this against me, and that one is trying to make me lose my job, and my wife put me down in front of all these other people, and woes and sorrows and problems. Who has redness of eyes? Those who linger long over wine, those who go to taste mixed wine. Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. At the last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your mind will utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the middle of the sea, or like one who lies down on the top of a mast. They struck me, but I did not become ill. They beat me, but I did not know it. When shall I awake? I'll seek another drink. Isn't it so? Come in Monday morning to the job. How was your weekend? It was great. We got locked out of our minds with drink. We didn't know where we were. We were vomiting up all over the street. I had a great time. Great time. How mad are we? How crazy are we? Great time. You spent all your money. You don't know where you spent it. You were out of your mind all weekend. You were physically sick. And you had a great time. What's wrong with people? Can our young people not see through this? Can our mature people not see through this? Ah, yeah, but I only have a glass of wine at the meal. Good for you. Good for you. I hope everybody takes it as that and wouldn't go beyond one glass of wine. Paul says that whatever causes my brother to stumble, if it's eating of meat, I'll give up meat, he says, so as not to cause my brother to stumble. If it's drinking wine, he says, I will give up drinking wine, so as not to cause my brother to stumble. Everybody knows that we take the example and the license from those who are older than us. And if they're older and Christians and they're having a drink, boy, is that justification for going out and having a drink? And the younger person doesn't have the control that you have, and the younger person isn't in the right company. He's in the company, or she's in the company that says, go on, have another one. Sure, it won't do you any harm. Just go ahead and, here, get another pint for that fella here. Just put it on the table for him. And then you sit there like a gobby. Yeah, take it up and take a drink. You don't even want it, but because you're being pressured, you'll take it. And of course, the drink. If you've had eyes full of adultery before you've had your drink, well, after you've got a few drinks on, I mean, the adultery is jumping out of your eyes. Everyone you see is a potential partner for you. Everyone you talk to, you're trying to entice. It is a very dangerous situation. And of course, in order to be doing the drinking is part of the social scene. Do we not remember in 1 Corinthians 15 verse 33 that bad company corrupts good morals? That's what it teaches there. Bad company. We're putting ourselves in the way of temptation with bad company. That's exactly what we're doing. Putting ourselves in the way of temptation. It's just terrible that we would do it, but we do it. We want to be with gluttonous eaters of meat and heavy drinkers of wine. And we have no problem with that. But what we don't know, or what we haven't accepted, is they influence us. They justify things for us that we wouldn't otherwise justify in our minds. They make us forget God because they have no God consciousness. And as a result of that, then we can be easily led into temptation. Drink and bad company are the two foremost ways of the devil breaking down your resolve to live a righteous and a holy life before God. He is doing that deliberately. He is trying to destroy you, and you're aiding and abetting him by saying, it's grand, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. The devil knows. Look, why do most of the older Christians not go to discos? Or nightclubs? Why? Because they put Rory out because he'd be too loud. Just so he won't get him out. The reason we don't know is because every older Christian has learned, you might go one night, no problem, not even a bad thought, nothing. No problem. You might go the week after, you might go the month after, you might go 6 months, 12 months. But the devil knows somewhere along the line, you're going to have a day where you've been rejected, where you're feeling sorry for yourself, where you're in need of comfort, where you need somebody to speak tenderly to you and give you some attention. And that's the night. That's the night when he's got power over you and you've got no control over yourself. So all he's got to do is wait. You're walking in the way. He has plenty of time to wait, and he knows how to set the trap. And you're walking right into it. That's why it's so imperative for us not to go that way, the way of the world through drink, and the way of the world through lust. Because drunkenness is a sin. And drink is a drug. Drugs get you. You start taking little amounts in the beginning. And then in order to have the same kick, you have to take more than you took at the beginning. And in order to have the same hit, you're going to have to take more and more and more until finally you're going to have to admit, I'm addicted to this. I can't live without it. There are people in this country who cannot live without drink. Or at least that's what they think. They can't live without it. Are you going to be one of them? There are children in this country who see fathers and mothers falling in the door Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and maybe Wednesday night through the week. Falling in the door. They're not capable of looking after themselves and are certainly not capable of looking after their children. Some see drunken mothers bringing in boyfriends into the house. And vice versa, drunken fathers bringing in girlfriends. And for no good reason, let me tell you. How are families going to stay together when this sort of thing is happening? We need to just wise up, brethren. We just need to just wise up. So we have all these lusts and we have all this temptation. There are other things that I need to go into, but I won't have time to do it. I just want us to see what our responsibility is in this whole matter. Our responsibility is to be Christian. The Christian way is the right way. The Christian way is the best way. The Christian way is what leads to all the good that possibly can be experienced or shared in this life. That's what the Christian experience does. The other experiences can only lead to selfishness and arguments and anger and fights and murder and greed and all the other things that drive humanity in the present day. But of course, if you don't have a God consciousness, there is nothing else. That's what Romans 1 tells us. Let's look there. Verse 24. Therefore God gave them over in the lusts of their heart to impurity, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason God gave them over to degrading passions. For the women exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural, and in the same way also the men abandoned the natural function of the woman, and burned in their desire towards one another, men with men committing indecent acts, and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. And just as they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer, God gave them over to a depraved mind, to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. And although they know the ordinance of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but also give hearty approval to those who practice them. When you leave God out of your life, that is the only lifestyle left to you. That is the only thing that this life offers to you. You're making a choice. Is it that life or the godly life? That's the choice that you're making. Which is it for you? Because you can't have them both. You can't have them both. Either you want to do right or you're doing wrong. Either you want to be good or you want to be evil. Either you want to please God or you're going to be pleasing yourself. Either you want to go to heaven or you're deciding, it doesn't matter to me if I go to hell. So that's the choice that's there. But one thing that I want you to dwell on, more than anything else, what's this generation and our generation, my generation, the 60s generation, what we set up, we are reaping the consequences of now. And we were arrogant, very arrogant. We thought we knew better than everybody. We were smart. We were more modern. We were going to be liberated like no other generation had been liberated. And we set in motion something that has gone on to the present day, and things are happening now which are frightening. I don't think anybody in the 60s would have ever dreamt about it. But that's the way sin is progressive. And what we're seeing then is terrible things happening. And look at the terrible things that were happening in Ezekiel's day, Ezekiel chapter 22. Just to show you where we're going, so that you might know that you either want to be a party to this or you want to break this cycle now. In verse 7, they have treated father and mother lightly within you. These were supposed to be godly people. They're treating their fathers and their mother lightly, with contempt. The alien they have oppressed in your midst. The fatherless and the widow they have wronged in you. You have despised my holy things and profaned my Sabbaths. They were even despised God, and there was nothing holy to them. Slanderous men have been in you for the purpose of shedding blood, and in you they have eaten at the mountain shrines. In your midst they have committed acts of lewdness. In you they have uncovered their father's nakedness. In you they have humbled her who was unclean in her menstrual impurity. One has committed abomination with his neighbour's wife, and another has lewdly defiled his daughter-in-law. And another in you has humbled his sister, his father's daughter. We're breaking down barriers to where there are no moral taboos anymore. No standard, it's gone, it's going, and everybody wants rid of it. It seems like everybody wants rid of it. No regard for proper boundaries. The internet is making it now Your life belongs to everybody, and everybody's life belongs to you. It's one of these frogs and spawn. Everybody's on top of everybody else. Nobody has any privacy. Nobody has any personal space. This is wrong. This is dangerous stuff. Very dangerous stuff. We get an evil leader. Just to show you. In Holland, they were so meticulous in their records that they had recorded everybody in the country and everybody's religion. The Nazis came in, picked up the books, they knew who exactly to go to, who to get, and who they can control. That's the sort of way information can be used by bad governments. And everybody's put everything on the internet. Do you not think there's bad people out there who will not use that information? They're even saying now that on Facebook they're telling the people, I'm down at the shops or I'm away for a week, and the robbers are looking at it now and say, that's grand, I'll hit the house now if they won't even be there for the week. Some information is just not for public consumption. We just need to be very careful what we're saying and what we're doing in a public way. You don't know who's listening to you. You don't know what they're going to do with the information. I don't think you should be paranoid. I just think you should be sensible, that's all. The barriers have been broken down here. There's no allowance for human rights. Lust tramples all civilized behaviour into the muck. And that's exactly what it does. So your children, your precious babies, are not even going to be safe. They're not even going to be safe because it's all gone mad. And because there's no boundaries, everybody's going to justify what they're doing. That's where it's going. Do you want to be part of it? Or do you want to stand up with God's people against it and say, no, that's wrong. I'm not having it for me. I don't want it for my children. I don't want it for my grandchildren. I don't want it for my society. This is wrong. This is dangerous. We must stand up against it and be counted in this war against what the devil is doing by using the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life, which is the only way that natural people or ordinary people or Christian, non-Christian people know how to live. Oh, that's all he's got to do, use their natural inclinations. And this is the way it turns out. I hope what I've said will remind you. I'm not saying anything new. I just hope you will be reminded, be warned, and I hope for your sake and your children's sake that you take some action on this and make a decision for righteousness. Leave it there.